What has happened to the players taken in the 2020 AFL Draft? The drafts on either side of it have produced some of the AFL's best players, but the 2020 crop has fallen flat so far. Now many of these players will be turning 23 or 24 next year and hitting their peak years, so that's important to keep in mind. Using the help of a website called Draft Guru, the link is in the description of this video, we can have a look at all the players taken in 2020 and see how they compare to other draft classes. Draft Guru uses a simple grading system from D, being a bad draft pick, to A+, meaning a fantastic draft pick. Looking at the 2021 draft, within the top 18 selections, equivalent to round 1 of the draft, there has been 1 A+ in Nick Dacos and 1 A in Jason Horne-Francis, followed by 6 B or B+. In 2019, there were 3 A's in Matt Rowell, Noah Anderson and Tom Green, and 8 B or B+. These have been 2 great drafts so far, and to have around half of the first 18 drafted players reaching at least a B rating is pretty good at this stage. 2020 is the outlier, and not in a good way. In the top 18 players selected, there is not a single B+, not one. 5 players have a B in Ugle Hagan, Elijah Hollins, Archie Perkins, Heath Chapman and Ollie Henry. The first player with a B+ is Geelong's Max Holmes, who was selected at pick 20. Out of the 59 total players taken in the national draft, 1 player has an A grade, and it's Errol Goulden, who was a matched academy bid at pick 32. This puts in perspective how average the 2020 crop has performed so far. But it hasn't been full of so-called busts. Out of the first couple rounds, 6 players have been delisted and are out of the AFL, which is an okay number for most drafts. The highest profile one is Denver Granger Barras, who was picked 6 and went to Hawthorn. He played 28 AFL games up until the 2024 season, and he still might get a shot later down the road. Blake Coleman from Brisbane and Matt Allison from St Kilda, who both didn't manage an AFL game at their clubs, have been delisted, and in the back end of the 36 selections, Fraser Rosman picked 34, Connor Downey picked 35, and Charlie Lazaro picked 36 have also been delisted. The majority of the players have been okay, either as role players, have shown potential but fallen away, or got injured, and then there are those that are barely surviving on AFL lists. The reason for the struggles of the draft crop has to be because of COVID. Especially for all the Victorians who had multiple lockdowns, there was no regular under 18 pathway. The 2020 and 2021 under 18 national championships did not go ahead, and school football in Victoria was interrupted as well. Those in South Australia, Western Australia and Queensland comparatively had an easier time with all the lockdowns, but they were still affected as well. It's a big factor in the draft cohort struggling, as they couldn't get continuity with training programs, development with the AFL National Academy, or train with VFL or AFL teams, as we have seen recent draftees do during their under 18 years. Compared to the 2 or 3 drafts either side of it, a lot of the 2020 players came in 12 months behind most other draftees. Injury has also struck the group. Perhaps this could be related back to being physically underdone when coming into the AFL system, but bad luck is also a part of it. Riley Thilthorpe looked ready to explode in 2024 before badly injuring his knee in a pre-season game. He would make a return and play 7 games in the back end of the year. Nick Cox for Essendon played 22 games in 2021 and looked like the AFL's next unicorn, but he had to deal with numerous back and ankle injuries across 2022 and 2023, combining to play just 11 games in those 2 years. He played 20 last year, but didn't look like the player he did in his first AFL season. His teammate Zach Reid has never had a full run at it, dealing with soft tissue injury after soft tissue injury, playing just 9 senior games in his 4 seasons. Elijah Holland, drafted by Gold Coast and now at Carlton, had to miss out on his first season with an ACL, and Will Phillips, who was picked 3, had his 2022 basically ended due to a bad bout of glandular fever. He didn't play an AFL game that year and managed just 3 VFL ones. These are some of the examples from the top picks in the draft, and just like their 2020 year, their time in the AFL has been full of delay and lack of development. But not all the 59 players have been average or bust. We do have some stars that are running around in the AFL right now. Errol Goulden is the superstar. He's already a 2-time All-Australian, Best and Fairest winner, and has won 3 Best on Ground medals all in a row in the Battle of the Bridge against GWS. He has also been a driving force that has helped Sydney get to 2 grand finals in the 4 completed seasons he's been at the club. The stars category has a couple. Max Holmes was a revelation for Geelong last year, splitting his time in the midfield and defence, and might become a superstar in 2025. Jamara Ugle-Hagan, I think, can be put down as a star. 43 goals is a good return in 21 games, but he still has issues with goal-kicking accuracy. Maybe he is an ascending star, rather than a certain one like Holmes, who did take out Geelong's Best and Fairest. Then there are the good role players. Beau McCreary, Heath Chapman, Brandon Walker, Sam Berry, and Ollie Henry are a few who have slotted in when needed and played okay to very good. Their ceiling maybe isn't as high as others, but at least you know what you're going to get out of them. And that leads us to the crossroad and potential section where so many of these high picks fall into. The Essendon boys and Archie Perkins, Nick Cox and Zach Reid sit comfortably here. There is clearly some talent, but since that first year with Perkins and Cox, they have looked lost. Right now, they are closer to busts than stars, and Zach Reid surely doesn't have many chances left to prove he can stay healthy and actually be available to play. It's such a critical 5th season for all 3 of them. Then there are the other 2 key forwards in Logan McDonald and Riley Thilthorpe, who are just sitting behind Jamara. Both are tracking well for young big men. McDonald has improved his goal total every year and looks solid right now. He might not have the X factor like a Jeremy Cameron or Tex Walker, but does the fundamentals well for his age. Thilthorpe is the one that seems to have a greater potential. He packed on size while he was injured, and physically is more intimidating. Expect him to be a star or superstar at the end of 2025. The rest are full of midfielders. Tanner Bruin, Tom Powell, Elijah Hollands, Will Phillips and Luke Pedlar, who was omitted for most of 2024, are all in a similar spot. They just aren't quite good enough to hold down high time on ground midfield roles, but also don't really fit anywhere else. Hollands was good at half forward for Carlton, but it's hard to stay in games playing there all the time, and Pedlar isn't really a small forward type where Matthew Nicks would often situate him. Again, coming into year 5, it's where these guys should be hitting their peak and beginning to break out. So far, the 2020 draft class, if it was a student, isn't quite failing, but they are sitting at about a C- and maybe a C. Feels like the next couple seasons will determine if the potential was there all along and just needed time to flourish, or perhaps the class was never all that talented in the end. Luck has not been on their side as well, but with nearly half a decade in the AFL system, there is no better time for these top picks to turn the corner and try and help their teams.